So the clock on the wall says 6. That worked.
Might need to talk more in this speaker.
The clock on the wall says 6, so I think we should get started, perhaps with roll call. So, Mike.
Yes, I'm here.
Who are you?
I'm Mike Pelfrey,
Thank you.
or Edgar.
Kathleen Crone here.
Tom Bradbeer.
Seth Benham here.
Adriana Reinhardt.
Eric Schlegel here.
Kurt Collins.
Joel King.
Tom Brandis.
Terry Hopkins here.
Rick Riker here.
Christina Schlegel here.
Perfect. Well,
Victoria Marshall here.
sorry, I forget that. Sorry. We have someone else online too, I believe. Rob, are you there? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. So Jason, why don't you go ahead and start, please?
Thank you, Chair, members of the Budget Committee, and members of the public. Welcome to the greatest night of budget, Public Works Night. It's my favorite night of the year. I shouldn't, well, just a little bit, Member Bradbeer. We do have quite a bit to cover tonight, but I promise I won't keep you past about 10 or 10:30, so we should be able to power through pretty quickly. Okay, that was a joke. I'm targeting much earlier than 10:30 tonight. So agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about the department organization, who are Public Works, and then review all of the individual divisions that are underneath Public Works, including transportation, stormwater, water, wastewater, solid waste, Public Works Administration, engineering services, facilities management services, and also, it didn't make the list, but Facilities Capital Services, which is a new program last year, and Fleet Services. So similar to Tuesday night, the slides are going to direct you to the exact pages of the financial data that we're discussing. Each slide will just show 2 previous years of data, the current fiscal year, so FY25 budget, and the manager recommended FY26 budget, and a projected FY27 budget. The other thing we do that's a little bit different, like we cover all of the LB projects on Tuesday night. Thursday night now, we're going to cover capital projects with each department review. So when we get to the water, we're going to cover water capital projects. When we're in transportation, we'll cover transportation capital projects. It's a big part of what Public Works does. So we will cover any new capital project or any existing capital project receiving additional funding allocation of $100,000 or more. And we'll try to refer to the actual capital pages to get you to the page and get there. So as I said previously, Public Works is comprised of water, wastewater, streets, stormwater, fleet, facilities. We have 63.54, I know that's a weird number, but it works out, full-time employees, and just under 13 hours of temporary and seasonal hours. The budget presented does increase staffing by just under. It says 3, but I believe it actually equates to 2.5, similar to the slide that Aaron showed on Tuesday night. And that real big addition is we're picking up our meter reading services. Our meter reading has been contracted out now forever, darn near since I started here with the city over 30 years. The contractor has become increasingly difficult to work with, so we bid out meter reading services and received 1 proposal for more than twice what we were previously paying, and our existing contractor who we were having difficulty with did not submit a bid, which means that we really need to look at bringing that in-house, so we will be doing that. We also are asking to add 1 FTE to our collections maintenance group, and that is really to ensure that we are out there getting all the cleaning and TV inspections done in a timely manner to keep in compliance with our permit. And then we'll see 1 FTE boost in the Public Works admin, but there is a corresponding decrease in our other divisions, as what we did was relocated a position from a field crew to the Public Works admin group. When we look at the overall division, it is a busy division. We have quite a few employees out there doing quite a bit of work, And one of the things that we do have an issue with, so that's the other thing that we are working with Aaron and HR on, is the reclassification of 2 positions, and you saw those also in the projected budget. And the reason for that is we have some people that are supervising very, very large numbers, direct reports. In our distribution group, we have 1, 2, 3, looks like 9 plus, and we're adding 2 more to 1 supervisor, which is a big load. So we're going to break that up and have a superintendent and a supervisor that'll help to make the span of control much more manageable. It'll give us much better service to our community. And doing the same thing in our GIS group, where we have a coordinator who is essentially working in that same role, but by making them a supervisor, we're able to reduce the direct reports that I have, which is currently sitting at 11, which is quite a bit to keep up with. So transportation program is first, and those are on pages 170 to 181 of your budget. The transportation program is, of course, responsible for all the maintenance of vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian systems, including repairs of existing roadways and overlays, sign fabrication and installation, curb, gutter, and sidewalk repair where there isn't a clear owner and adjacent to that piece of sidewalk. Right-of-way vegetation control that is unrelated to stormwater, so you'll see this theme repeated. So stormwater also is responsible for a fair amount of right-of-way vegetation control, but it is very much specific to stormwater runoff. This right-of-way vegetation control is for visibility, making sure that signs are visible so that you can see around intersections, that the setbacks are proper. And then it is also important to note that the right-of-way vegetation is shared with Parks Division. So quite a few years back, Parks Division took that on and they contract that service out and we pay for that service. It's also for our street lighting program and a total FTE count of 3.2. Looking at the overall program budget, the budget is down slightly by $500,000, but that is largely due to projects actually starting to get completed. So as you can see under transportation projects, we're carrying roughly $16 million in reserves for FY25, and that number goes down to $15 million in FY26, and a lot of that is just our projects are starting to get completed and we're spending those dollars down. Transportation projects are some of our most expensive projects year over year. The only thing more expensive is like water treatment plants, which we'll talk about later, but building roads is incredibly expensive. Even just resurfacing them takes a lot of our resources. As we look at the revenues for the program, the bulk of the money for this program is from state gas tax. We receive roughly $3.2 million. We're anticipating receiving about the same next year. The other large revenue generator in this is our transportation utility fee, and that will bring in roughly $1.3 million. And again, we're looking at about a $400,000 drop overall in revenue. That's just matching our revenues to our expenses. Looking at where the actual work gets done, personnel and services actually is decreasing in this program, and that's because we had a little bit of turnover there, and so some of our more senior people were being replaced by more junior employees, so they cost us less, and that's why we see that decrease. And then the common theme that we also talked about on Tuesday was the differences between contractual and professional services and then direct charges. And in that contractual and professional, we were charging out a lot of our direct charges, fleet services primarily and some others. Those are now moved to direct charges, so you'll see a corresponding drop. It is never a one-for-one drop, but that's why that big change. So you'll see a decrease in $82,000 in this program for contractual, but an increase in direct charges of $103,000. And I'm going to kind of blitz through some of these. This is just different ways to look at the same data. And then moving on to transportation projects. TR000, we generally don't show these, but it is important to note that these projects are used as the holding funds. That's where the dollars come into the project, into our capital fund, and then they're allocated out to our individual projects. And transportation is one that always looks a little bit different than our other funds. And the reason for that is to really maintain the independence of our gas tax revenue, which have very, very, very state mandated uses. We take those state gas taxes and we move them directly from our receiving line into the individual capital projects to make sure that those dollars, they don't sit here and get mixed up with other dollars. So they go directly to the projects. But what we do here is allocate all of our interest earnings as well as any transportation utility dollars that would then be allocated out to other projects. And I'm going to go and then kind of look around. I'm going to try and move through those, Chair, if that works for you. And I'll pause and look, and if I don't see a question, I'm going to kind of move to the next.
Joel?
I was just wondering, Jason, interest on what? What funds are we banking?
So that
for
is interest on all of the capital dollars that are sitting in the capital funds.
So all the dollars that are sitting in the capital fund, so like, do we have gas tax, bicycle fund?
Correct.
Intergovernmental transportation capital?
Yep.
General fund? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
So this comes from all funds then?
Yep.
Okay.
And so if those dollars have been transferred into the transportation capital budget, the interest that they accrue will stay within the transportation budget.
And that's 1 year's worth of interest?
That's what we're anticipating. We're sitting on quite a bit of cash. It's probably high, and it could be an accumulation of cash.
Okay,
JC,
so
is
that would be approximately how much cash you sitting on then?
it was right around 16 million.
Right, and so I don't know if everybody's seen the last policy movements and the fluctuation in interest over the last 5 months since the new president took office. So we were very conservative with projecting interest through all of the funds.
Yeah.
But yes, it is at the point in time or monthly we distribute interest based on the cash balance. So if he has a large project that draws those balances down, he gets less interest. If he contributes more to the fund and or is holding cash, then he gets more interest.
So the $16 million then is programmed out for future projects, but we don't need it this year. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, it's programmed out in multiple projects within the transportation, within the TR Capital Fund.
Over the next 3, 4, or 5 years?
Yeah, or more even. Some of
Okay.
our, as again, transportation capital projects are extremely expensive.
Sure.
Sometimes we have to accumulate resources for a decade.
That's a chunk of change.
It is. And they are transportation-specific dollars. They cannot
Right.
be relocated like to water, because we would love to get our hands on them in the water department, but we can't.
I understand what you're thinking, and you are understanding what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could add really quick too, in the capital book, we tried something a little bit new this year. In the top left-hand corner, there's potentially an orange kind of raft that shows the expected construction of some of those projects, and you'll see some of those projects are out to 2030 or even further.
Okay, I'm sorry. Rick has a question.
Yeah.
Whether, Tom, you have a question? Or are they just,
It'll be quick. Jason, my question is about the contingency account on page 171. That 540 or 508,000 for next year is substantially less than the ending balance for '24. So there will need to be additional savings, I believe. And how will you achieve that?
Yeah, so the contingencies, we're just bringing them down to fund balance. We probably were a little bit high last year. And so what we're trying to do is maximize our transfers to capital by keeping that fund balance, the contingency is where that sits, at exactly 25%. So it is very possible that the previous year, we were just high. Yeah.
And back to that 171 and part of your question, Tom, mathematically, that contingency is only based off the top 3 programs, not the transportation projects or the transfers out.
Thank you for the clarifying.
Rick?
Thank you. So on page 173 on transportation street maintenance.
Yep.
The title above it says actual expenditures, but then below in the actual diagram it says street activities. So activities, that would be projects rather than dollars?
It's where, so we're spending roughly 40% of the budget on vegetation control, 21% on street repairs, 7% on sidewalk, 40% signage. That's kind of where the programs break out. It's more by program.
Okay, so by program, but not by dollars.
Not by dollars, that's just by
Just-
percentage of dollars for the entire program.
Okay, thank you, that makes sense.
Yep.
Somebody online has a question?
Rob does.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Rob.
Yes.
Hello? Yeah, you,
Go for it, Rob.
somehow you couldn't hear me. Somehow I could hear you earlier, but you couldn't hear me. On the contingencies, Jason, is that more for emergency situations, or is that for projects that go over budget?
Neither. It really is our fund balance. So like in all of our programs, we maintain a fund balance of roughly, I think the current policy is 25 to 35 for most of the utility funds, so that if, say tomorrow, we couldn't bill any revenues or the state quit sending us gas tax, we still have revenue to operate off of for, and I want to say it's 3 to 4 months, correct? Thank you, JC. I was looking for the nod from JC. But it is really just emergency operating expenses, and council would have to allocate those dollars in an emergency. They cannot be utilized.
Thank you.
You're on again.
Great. So the first real project is on page 29 of your capital book. And one of the things about Public Works, we're going to jump back and forth between your books quite a bit, and I apologize for that. This is on page 29, and this is project TR 6116. This project has been on the books almost as long as I have been a city employee. It really has taken a long time to get done, but it is under construction as of today, and we anticipate it being done in 18 to 24 months next year. Amazing project. It has been more of a haul than I think anybody anticipated. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a huge shout out to Wade Elliott, who has finally got this thing over the hump and got it into construction. So this project, we are asking for an additional infusion of $150,000 in transportation system development charges and $250,000 of gas tax, and that is just the remainder of our share of the dollars. As you recall, most of it is being funded by CMAQ funds through ODOT.
Sorry, Rick.
So this project has been long ongoing. When you look at the whole picture over the years, how did we come out financially having to come up with, I know every project always gets more expensive than originally planned, but have we ended up in a pretty good position?
I'm going to say yes. I'm looking at Wade a little bit. Let me get started and then you can take in. Eventually, the answer is yes. Our share of this project, I want to say, is 12%. It was very low. It was a CMAQ share, maybe a little bit over 12%. I'm looking at Wade. Come on, help me out now.
I think we're actually overmatched. Can you guys hear me?
Did you turn it on? There we go.
All right, this time for sure. All right. So we're actually overmatched on this project a little bit. So typically on federal projects, it's about a 16 to 20% match on the federal funds, which most of these are. In this case, as you see up on Jason's slide, we've got about almost $5 million worth of local resources in there. Total project cost is $13 million, so we're sitting in that 30 to 40% local match range. So when you ask about, the long-term view of where we came out on this, I mean, yes, it's cost a lot more. This project's almost 14 years old, so the original infusions of the federal dollars have long since been outpaced by inflation. But that being said, we have also acquired a lot more money over the years through the Mid-Rogue Metropolitan Planning Organization in the form of surface transportation block grants and CMAQ money, congestion mitigation air quality. So as we have acquired more money, we've had to dump some more in local resources. But yeah, it's gotten more expensive over the years.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Wade.
Sorry. Mike?
Oh, no, in the back.
Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody online.
Yeah, hi, this is Rob. Wade, are there any additional properties that need to be acquired for that Allen Creek situation?
No, it's a
Or
timely.
are we
Oh, sorry. It's a
That's okay.
timely, that's a timely question though, because we just recorded the last property on it, I think, last week. So there was a few of them that were going through the court system that took a little bit longer to get through, but we are over the hill on that one and have acquired all the properties.
Awesome, good job.
Yeah, thanks.
So TR 6333, this is on page 33. This is a pass-through grant that comes to us from the federal government. It is $123,380. It is for transit, and as I understand it, this grant is going to be stopping. Do you want to take that one, JC?
Yeah, part of the federal review, they looked at these funds. We worked with the county and Scott Chauncey with the transportation system, and he has agreed with us that he probably doesn't need these funds in the manner in which he was originally getting them for. I mean, he has other federal funds that he can utilize for maintenance and other things on the transit system. So working together and figuring out a solution, it seems like we will discontinue this grant.
TR 6372 on page 36. This one is our overlay and maintenance budget, and this is kind of one of the projects that we have that's ongoing. We identify street segments that need major reconstruction and overlays, or overlays before they need a major reconstruction, and we try to fund it with quite a bit of reserve money. It's expensive. So this year we're putting in $1 million, and I don't know all the street segments, but there's probably multiples that are identified for construction this year. Okay. TR 6373, this is a bike pedestrian river crossing. This project has been on the books. It is on page 37 of your capital book. We are asking for an additional allocation of $125,000 specifically from bikeway dollars, which can only be used for that purpose, and it is to continue to evaluate an additional spot for a pedestrian / bike crossing of the Rogue River. Current locations tentatively are thinking about 5th Street or in that general vicinity, but could be farther down.
Joel.
So Jason, you show significant expenditures in fiscal year 26. What is that going to accomplish?
So that just gives us the flexibility to start doing that. This would probably fund a study. We really need to probably get a consultant on board, look at different locations for where that can go, because where it can go determines what it has to look like. You know, if you get too far in the right spot, the bridge has to be too wide, and then you have to spend more money or put piers in the river and those all things. So we need to really study where it's going to go, where it's going to land. That would probably be a pretty large public involvement. You know, where do the people want to see that crossing at? Right now, even though we're showing that as being able to be spent, they may not be spent. We just show them as being allocated so that we have the flexibility that should it be time to get that started, we can.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Rick?
On the bike pedestrian crossing, you said plan for 5th Street, that area?
Well, that's one of the prime locations to look at for a couple of reasons. One, we own property on both sides, which makes it a nice location. It also, you know, 5th Street is a high candidate for the major north-south bike route potential, as opposed to trying to get bikes up and down 6th and 7th. 4th probably a little better, but it is one of the locations that's being looked at.
But one of our concerns before was the Redwoods Sewer District and trying to have a new line come across. Could that also be?
That one is still also on the table, which would be way out off of Lower River Road.
So it would not be part of this crossing?
Yep. Wade just gave me the affirmative, yes. That would also be one of the considerations.
Okay, thank you.
And to those that don't know that, we'll probably hit that one under sewer. One of the things we need is a new sewer crossing. One of the ways that the sewer could get across would be on a pedestrian bridge, similar to what we're doing at Reinhardt. But we would need that probably out Lower River Road quite a ways. Schroeder, thank you. I was trying to think of the name of the park on the opposite side. Thank you, Wade. Okay. Project TR6426. This is the Foothill and Agnes roundabout. If you've driven through Foothill and Agnes, this intersection is a booger. It's multiple lanes. It's essentially it's a four-way stop with too many lanes at a four-way stop. It is difficult to navigate. Through our initial study and working with ODOT, because we're still in that kind of overlay, the on-ramp overlay, this really does look like a very good location to put a roundabout in to keep traffic moving through this area. So this project will keep that moving forward, continue the study and preliminary design. We've already worked with a couple of the adjacent properties to acquire the right-of-way. We believe it's a pretty good project, especially as Spalding continues to develop. To be able to get truck traffic and other traffic in and out of there smoothly is going to be very important. So we're asking for an additional $650,000 in gas tax. And again, this is years off from construction. We're just starting to accumulate some funds and keep the project moving. I have to now turn my head to look back for Karen's little hand. 4th Street Bridge Refinement Study. This is a partnership study with ODOT. It is on page 44 of your capital book. It really is to start to refine the 4th Bridge location. We've been talking about the 4th Bridge for longer than I have been a city employee. It will be needed eventually. We all know, especially on fair weeks and when you get late afternoon, 5 o'clock traffic, the bridges all back up. We need another way across the river at some point in time. This, again, is a very future-looking project, but what we have to start to do is, A, identify the location, agree we choose that location, commit to that location, and then start taking all the necessary actions to build that road. We have to acquire the properties as they come up for sale. We have to make sure that we can get the right-of-way through and get all of the work done. It's not a short-term project. This is probably another 20 years out or more, but we have to start now or it'll never occur. A Street reconstruction and overlay. A Street is in need of some love. This project was created to reconstruct A from 8th Street all the way to Baker Drive, so a pretty significant section, and overlay everything from Baker to Beacon. So that section is in much better condition, so we can just overlay. But the section from 8th to Baker is gone past where an overlay will fix it, so we're going to do a much more deep reconstruction. We're asking for an additional $400,000 in gas tax. We're also transferring $100,000 of wastewater operations to fix the wastewater pipes that are underneath this section, and the total project cost is roughly $2.2 million. And I believe you're scheduled for part of it this year, right? One more year. Okay. Okay, keep going. This is a new capital project. This is project TR6452, and it is Lincoln Road improvements. So this is another really key project. Lincoln Road gets a lot of traffic. It is right at the fringe of the city, but it is the primary connection between Bridge Street and G Street or Upper River Road. So this section needs pretty major upgrading. It is also a very much a future-looking project, but we have to start accumulating funds, start to purchase some pieces of right-of-way through there. There's also some mitigation of some wetlands that are going to need to be done. So it is basically just kick-starting the project, and hopefully this will be a joint project between the city and Josephine County. It is a county road. Traditionally, what we like to do is wait for Josephine County to update their roads to city standards and before we take them on. This one probably is beyond the resources of both agencies, so it'll need to be a joint project. And we're not going to likely get ODOT help with this one. Maybe a little grant money.
Tom.
Lincoln Road used to be, excuse me, used to be Highway 260. Along with Upper and Lower River Road.
Yeah.
That was a state highway.
That is correct.
And the portions of Lower River Road and Upper River Road became county responsibility.
Yeah.
And some of that is inside the urban growth boundary and even inside the city limits. So what is the dividing line between city responsibility and county responsibility for Highway 260?
You gonna take this one? This is a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question, Tom. So when you look at the urban growth boundary in that section between G and Bridge Street there, it splits the road right down the middle of it. So the center line is the boundary. So when you look at some of the, through the Urban Area Planning Commission, some of the developments that are happening are on the east side of Lincoln, but the stuff on the west is still outside. Now, you are correct that Josephine County did take a buyout essentially to accept the jurisdiction of that roadway.
I think it was several million.
It was, yep, which they used for improvements along Lower River Road and some of those things. So right now, Josephine County's contributions to this project is that they are working with us through the Middle Rogue Metropolitan Planning Organization to help us get it funded through there. It was awarded funding over the year in this 3-year funding cycle of both congestion mitigation, air quality, and surface transportation block grants. So this project already has a couple $1 million, and it's in the state TIP and the STIP, which we're working with Josephine County for.
If I may follow up briefly, the portion of Lower River Road that runs along in front of Rogley Estates and other senior manufactured home parks doesn't have a multimodal path or sidewalks along most of that section of road. There are about 200 tax lots in senior communities that rely on that section of Lower River Road for access. Walking or riding a bicycle along that section of road is very dangerous. So will there be funding? I mean, I presume that the county would be responsible for the multimodal path, or would that be a joint city and county project?
Right now, it is in the county, so I think we're going to lean on the county to do that. Part of their governmental transfer for the jurisdiction was that they had to upgrade the ADA ramps along Rogley, and there was a timeline to do that, and I'm not sure where they're at, but there is an actual contract and a timeline for that.
And there is a project in the transportation plan, I believe, for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wade. And that is the end of stormwater, or our transportation, and we get to move on to stormwater. So we're going to switch books again. We're going to set our capital book aside and jump into stormwater back in our regular budget book on pages 182 to 191. So stormwater is a very new program to the city. As you recall, we created this program, I'm saying about 5 years ago now, roughly, in 2018. This is largely in response to the city being issued a MS4 Phase 2 stormwater permit, and that is a municipal separate storm sewer system. And that's why we always say MS4, because that other mouthful is way too much to say. And this was in response to being designated an urban area through the last, not the last census, but the census prior to that. What that requires is that we have a lot more responsibility when it comes to our stormwater system that we have to monitor, control, and report on. It pays for our repair and maintenance of our surface and subsurface drainage systems. It also pays for our street sweeping contract. That's one of the big things we get credit for on our stormwater system is the sweeping of all of our streets. Takes care of drainage vegetation control. And so even though they may be cleaning out the vegetation on the side of the road, it's actually in the drainage swales and in the ditches, but it's not for the same purpose of the transportation program. It is also where we pay for our intergovernmental agreement with Grants Pass Irrigation District. As if you've grown up around here very long, you know that the Grants Pass Irrigation District and the Grants Pass stormwater system are very much entwined. So we share costs on some projects, and we pay them, I think this year it's a little over, you'll see it in the budget, about $100 and some thousand. And recommended fees for this year, or FTEs, are 4.58. On this program budget, we're seeing it up about 600,000 total, but if you look, that largely is all in our transfers out of the program. And so what we're doing again is maximizing our contingency, taking all of our revenues, funding our stormwater operations first, and then every other dime we're moving into our capital program to be out there in the streets fixing up the stormwater system for the citizens. Most of the costs are fairly flat after that. Looking at the revenue side, our fees we're predicting to be up slightly from 2.3 million to 3. Interest, we're going to hold steady. We did keep a pretty low number here. And stormwater projects are going to go down slightly, but we are getting more work done. And then looking at just the operations portion of the budget, personnel and services are up. These are people that have been here a little bit longer. They're moving up through their steps, negotiated increases. Materials and supplies are pretty flat. And then again, we see that contractual services number go way down, but our direct charges go way up. And that, again, that's just swapping those cost centers for an overall increase of just 88,000 for the year. And again, just a graphical view of that. So there are no major adjustments in the stormwater program. Really, the focus of this program is just to meet that MS4 Phase 2 permit. And we are going into, I want to say it's our second program cycle. We have been in the program for a while. We got a very good review on our first program cycle, which is a 5-year cycle. It does require a lot of work. We have to TV a lot of the system. We have to clean a lot of the system, and then we have to report on that to the DEQ. Very similar to what we have to do. It's just like having an NPDES permit, only it's on stormwater instead of wastewater. So a lot of work for Shelley and her team. Unfortunately, Shelley couldn't be here tonight. Her daughter is getting married, and she thought that that was more important than being here with us, so I can't blame her at all. So looking at stormwater efficiencies, as you recall, a few years ago, we added a new CCTV van to this group. They were using the one CCTV van we did have, which spends a lot of time in wastewater, but there's no way that we could cover all the footages that we need to do. We have to do roughly the entire system in a 5 to 7 year period. We like to do it in 5 years, so that means 20% of the system TV'd every year. With the miles of pipe that are out there, that's just a really high goal. So we now have 2 cameras running almost all the time, one on the wastewater side, one on the stormwater side. They also then are able to map and document all of the deficiencies. And now both of our camera systems are fully integrated with our GIS and CMMS system, which really streamlines our operations. Also, the dedicated funding that council did provide for stormwater has been huge. You've probably heard me say it time in and time out. Stormwater was kind of the utility that was always forgotten. It's rains, right? And we only need this for a couple of months out of the year in Oregon. Otherwise, it's dry as a bone around here. We don't need stormwater. So we neglected the stormwater system. All communities did. And so now having a dedicated funding source for this, we're able to get out there and fix some deficiencies. Fifth Street is a prime example right now. Don't go drive it right now, but Fifth Street is being replaced. We're doing the stormwater line all the way from G Street to the river. A huge project, vitally needed. The stormwater line that is in there was a sewer line that was abandoned because it was undersized and deficient. And so what we did was converted that into a stormwater line and ran it for another 50 plus years, and now it is really deficient. So we're installing a brand new line in there, also a new sewer line. The contractor's been really good to work with, but boy, has it been tough. The soil conditions on this project are some of the worst that we've seen. They have been really challenged, really challenged.
Joel?
I really like my sewer system working. So thank you for that.
Most people do. Thank you.
Yeah. I want to take a step back from this. You got stormwater maintenance. Then you have stormwater operations, which just seems like operations would include maintenance, but the way I look at it, the way it's defined here, operations is just funding capital projects. And then you have stormwater projects. So I don't quite understand the three categories of activities that you have. And it seems like there's personnel in each one of them.
There is not.
Okay.
There is, operations really is the money that's coming in and out. Projects is where we transfer the money to move to capital. And then the stormwater maintenance program is where the work gets done, and that's where the people are.
Okay, so stormwater operations is really an accounting thing then?
It is an accounting thing.
Okay, okay.
Rick?
So when we have a large rainstorm, our problem with our system is a lot of the stormwater ends up in sewer and therefore creates problems at the water at sewage treatment plant. So is Fifth Street, was that a major contributor to that?
I think yes. One of the things they found when they were way down by Fifth and Bridge, they plug the pipes, the sewer pipes, and then we're pumping around so that we can then lay a new section of pipe and then put the sewage back into the new pipe and then do the same thing. And so this was plugged at a manhole, a couple hundred feet away, and it had clear water pouring out of it because it's picking up all of the groundwater and acting just like a curtain drain. So yes, it will help, but that exists 1,000 times over in a lot of different areas. I will say that Shane and his team out in the collection system have been doing amazing work, and Lance before him, finding leaks in our collection system and plugging them, especially in manholes. That's one of the areas where we can do a really good job of getting in there and sealing them up with epoxy. And I think Gary even notices it's a little difference. It's not a big difference, but it's a little difference at the plant. And this year was tough because it's been the first year it's rained in a while, but it's making a difference, and we have to spend more money to reduce I&I because that'll save us millions of dollars at the wastewater plant.
Okay, thank you.
Tom?
Jason, one of the projects is the Judy and Larch Stormwater Project. Yep. I presume that's Judy Street and Larch over by Lower River Road and Lincoln Road?
It's on my list here in a second.
Oh, you're going to go? Oh, I'll wait then.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
But thank you. It is leading right into capital. Again, our DOO project, what you see here is unlike on the transportation side, you see all of the stormwater capital come in as a revenue and then get moved out to the individual projects, which is why it looks like there's a lot of money in the project, but it's not. It just rests there for a little bit and then gets moved out to the individual projects. So DO 6353, this is our emergency storm drain projects, and yes, we do have a lot of storm drain emergencies. What happens with storm drains is they sit there and they work great until they actually fail, and usually what it'll be is a section of pipe will fail, and then because you have so much stormwater running through it, the erosion happens really, really fast, and you end up with a pretty big mess. So we try to fund this at about $150,000 a year to accumulate funds so that we're able to react to any emergency. This is the Fifth Street Storm Drain Project between G and M on page 58 of your capital. It actually takes it all the way to the river, but it replaces structurally deficient storm drain lines on Fifth between G and M, where you just need a little bit more money, $300,000 of stormwater capital to complete the project. Estimated cost is about $4 million, excuse me, 400,000. That'd be great. We'd do some more work if it was that cheap. So this is a project that's been on the books. This is page 59 of your capital book, and it is the South Highline Canal near Allen Creek. This is intended to be a joint project between Grants Pass and Grants Pass Irrigation District. This section was identified in our stormwater master plan as a very high priority. It is a bottleneck in the GPID system that is receiving a fair amount of Grants Pass drainage water. But it does need to be a partnership project. And so every year we fund it with our half of the project, hoping that Grants Pass will come to the table with their half, and they have yet to do so. So we keep working with them. They have had a change of management this year, and we'll continue to work with them, but hopefully this project does get done before we just have to go in and do it ourselves. We don't like working on their system. We prefer that they work on their system, we work on our system, and we just share resources. Page 60, Judy and Larch Stormwater. Perfect. I don't know where we've heard that before. And this is really to upgrade stormwater infrastructure around the Lincoln Road area. We do focus on Judy and Larch because that's kind of the area that floods all the time. It is low. Houses are built up on piles of dirt to stay dry. That was part of the plan of the subdivision. You wouldn't think so, but that's kind of how it was designed. But it is a very low spot, and it is a very difficult area to get water away from. So this is going to help to fund a study to figure out where we're going to take all this water and then eventually turn into a capital project to actually get that water out of there.
Tom?
My question about this was, should that project be coordinated with the Lincoln Road Improvement Project in terms of timing and perhaps overlapping funding?
Yeah, it probably will, regardless. The stormwater issue aside, we do need to study, figure out how much water is coming into that area, because it's collecting a lot more drainage than just that immediate little area. Then the bigger question is, how the heck do you get it away from there? It's really flat it's flat from there on out. It's really hard to get to the river. You can't just go straight. I'm going to get my directions wrong. I really stink at this. South, I think. You can't just go straight south and get to the river. You may end up having to go down west to be able to turn to get south through those farmlands. It's going to be a challenge.
Tom, again?
Yeah, I live out there, and there's a storm drain that goes right down my property line. It zigs and zags, but eventually gets to the river. Yeah. That might be a potential.
Excellent questions, and I like where your head's at, Tom, and we are likely going to combine those projects. We did do a little bit of a study to this point, and there was a couple of routes. Well, there's actually 3 options. Well, 4. There's a trash pump option, which is a terrible option, so that's not really an option. The other one would be that we clean out that canal system, which is where it goes right now. But the problem with that is that it's part of the, I forget what irrigation district that is, but the Fort Vanoy?
Fort Vanoy, I think is part of that.
And then it also has a bunch of county, and nobody wants to touch it. It's on private property, not a lot of good easements, not a great option. The other option would be to take it down Rogley Lane, and then you would tie into Lower River Road, jog it back over, and go down Lincoln, and then hit the river from there. And likely the best option is that we're going to take it out to Lincoln Road, and it'll be very deep, but this estimate is around taking it out to Lincoln Road deep, and then taking it all the way down to the river from there. So we may end up putting those together with the Lincoln Road project, but I have a feeling that Judy and Larch might need to go first, and it's also going to be tearing up the already developed portion of Lincoln, unfortunately, and the section that we're going to improve with the Lincoln Road project is upstream of there.
Adriana.
I don't know if this matters, but I recall last year the city council approved, I think, Janser RV Park at Bridge in Lincoln. And I remember a huge requirement was stormwater. Has that been considered in what you guys are doing here, what they're going to need to do for their plans?
Yeah, so they'll be conforming with the new stormwater management manual, which reduces the runoff from the site to pre-development stages. So theoretically, it will release more volume, but less, it won't release more at a concentrated time. So it shouldn't have much of an effect. I'm actually really hoping that they develop first, because they would be building half of the road for me, and it'd make our Lincoln Road project a lot cheaper. So fingers crossed.
Yeah. They've cleared the property. They're getting ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So back to the other book. That was all of our stormwater capital. Moving on to water services. This is on pages 192 to 207 of your book. Water is comprised of our water treatment, water distribution, water debt service, water general program ops, and water capital construction. So the water division is responsible for pumping and treating water from the Rogue River, distributing it, metering it, and billing for that water to all of our customers, monitoring and reporting on our water quality. They are responsible for, which is, in my opinion, one of our most important programs, our cross-connection and backflow program. They maintain our treatment facilities, pump stations, and reservoirs. We have 13 pump stations with over 53 pumps, ranging in size from 40 gallons per minute up to 2,300 gallons per minute. The pumps get really big, and with the new treatment plant, the pumps get even bigger than that. It's pretty amazing. We have 8 reservoirs ranging in size from 45,000 gallons up to 5 million gallons. And our newest reservoir in the Meadowwood subdivision will be going online, I want to say at the end of this month. They're filling it this week for the first time to leak check, so we're really excited. When I come back next year, I get to say that we have 9 reservoirs, so that's kind of amazing. We have over 191 miles of distribution piping ranging in size from 2 inches to over 36 inches. Our customer service group, who I saw Kimberly in the back, is at the head of that. We have an amazing group of people down there that work with all of our customers. But when you call up, that's who you get to get a leak check, to get your water turned on and off if you have any billing questions. So recommended FTEs for the entire program are 6 in our treatment group, 9.34 in our distribution group, and 1.2 in water operations, which is new. And that's the actual 2 FTEs for the meter reading program, but you're going to see 0.8 of those in the wastewater side. And the reason for that is that wastewater billing is also tied to water consumption, so they benefit from us having those meter readers out there reading the meters, so they get to help us pay for those FTEs. So looking at the overall water projects, this is where we are carrying a lot of cash, and all of it is in the water treatment plant program, or not all of it, but a large portion of it is. Our water treatment program budget, our water distribution program budgets are relatively flat. They are up a little bit, but not significantly. And then you see that our debt service is going from 0 in FY25 up to 500,000, and that is where we start paying off our first set of loans on the water treatment plant project. Water operations is taking a slight decrease, but water projects is up significantly, and what we have to remember is that that is the water treatment plant program, and what we're showing is the influx of cash from either bonds or loans as we continue to work on the water plant project. Looking at the overall program, look at the revenue side, our revenues are holding pretty flat. Beginning balance, it looks low, but again, what we're doing is we're really trying to maximize our transfers to capital. And so our ending balances are the absolute minimum that we can get them down to. I mean, we're really trying to hold the line there to make sure that we can transfer as much money as we can into our capital program, namely the water treatment plant. We're estimating our sale of water up just a little bit. Urban Renewal Agency, we're showing an infusion from there of 438,000. The Urban Renewal Agency is paying for a portion of the debt service of the water treatment plant debt. That was part of what the program was for. And then our interest, we are upping that because JC has been incredibly successful in earning us more money in interest, and also just because of the amount of cash that we've been carrying on the water treatment plant program, we're able to recover more of that interest. And then last year, we did have a transfer to transportation, which was a transportation project that had a water component, but that doesn't exist this year.
Rick?
At one point, we have 2 locations for sale of bulk water, and before some of the state regulations changed, we were looking at, I would say, significant income, is that still, are you talking about that later, or is that?
Yeah, I am not. It has now become a very de minimis part of our water rate. I will say, when the bottom fell out of the marijuana market, we lost a significant revenue stream. We were pushing almost $1 million a year in bulk water sales. Now it's a few $100,000. Yep.
Jason, on page 193, it says what happened last year. We worked with a design builder to complete the 95% design, et cetera, and adopted the guaranteed maximum price. What's the guaranteed maximum price?
Right now, it's $99,847,000 and some change. The guaranteed maximum price is actually the not to exceed value for the construction of the portion of the treatment plant that is at the J Street site. And we'll talk about that in a little bit when we get into capital.
Sorry, Joel.
Good presentation, Jason. Thank you. I appreciate what you do. I just want to make sure I'm interpreting this correctly. For this year, we have $68 million in the capital sinking fund for the water treatment plant, and next year we'll have $81 million.
Yeah, it's really important. Not all of that is in the water treatment plant project.
Okay.
Water is carrying, we've had to build up reserves for the Redwood Highway water looping, for the Meadowood Reservoir project, for the water treatment plant. So yes, the water fund itself is sitting on a fair amount of cash, but they are really dedicated to very critical infrastructure projects, in addition to just the reserves that we're required to hold.
So about 2/3 of that then is water treatment plant?
Yeah, when we get to that capital page, you'll be able to see it. Right now, we have, I think it's right at $23 million in cash in the water treatment plant project. So it's a very large portion of that number.
Okay, thank you.
Tom.
Jason, regarding the Urban Renewal Agency transfer, I presume that's 18% of the projected debt service?
So it is less than 18% of the projected debt service. That's a great question. We went through a lot of exercises with the council and the Urban Renewal Agency board. What we did was we took the projected debt when the agency was created, which was much lower than what the debt will be today, and we kind of projected that number out over the life of the Urban Renewal Agency, which is shorter than the life of the debt. And we kind of said, okay, what if it paid this portion? And we agreed on a number. It is less than what will be 18% of the debt service, but it is helpful nonetheless.
Just a quick follow-up with that. The same approach could be taken to the remainder of the revenue bond for the wastewater recovery plant.
Yes.
Is that anticipated to be 18% also?
No, we're doing pretty well on the wastewater side. At this juncture, the conversations that we've had both with Urban Renewal and as internal as staff, that those dollars would likely be more beneficial to partner with somebody in the public to really get some kind of catalyst project going. That really is the focus. So we don't want to take away too many dollars, but we really, really need the help on the water side.
But it would be legal to do so.
Absolutely. The agency was formed. It is an identified project. It would be legal for the agency board to dedicate 18% of the debt service payment. Yep. Okay. So diving into just water treatment, when we look at this, the personnel is up slightly or a little. Materials and supplies are reasonably flat. Adam did a great job, even though we saw some pretty significant increases in our chemical costs this year. The biggest increase we saw, Pacific Power had a very large increase, and utilities making water is very power intensive. And then the capital costs, that shows up in the capital and professional services. That's why the offset on this one is so much lower than what we've seen in all of our others. Normally they're close, but this one is, we went down 2,000 but up 180,000. Well, the reason is power. Power took a big jump, and we have to be ahead of it for the water treatment plant. Moving to the, sorry about that, distribution side. That's everything that we just talked about as we went. Again, pretty flat budget. Personnel is up, materials and supplies is up a little, but our contractual went down with a corresponding increase on the direct charges. This one, we made a couple of changes to Craig Kuhnert in the back, to his budget to try and accelerate a couple of the more expensive vehicles. They've been in the fleet for a very long time. We just want to make sure that we've accumulated enough dollars to replace those when they truly do need it. But overall, on a 2.2 million budget, it's only up 113,000, which is pretty significant. That's good. Not significant in a bad way, but significant in a good way. Same thing, just looking at how those numbers are allocated. And Craig's group, when we look back, I actually want to highlight that. When we look back at Adam, who I also lost, he's right there. Water treatment is almost, it almost used to be a third. Materials and supplies, personnel, contractual professional services, as our contractual has gotten more expensive because it's all power, chemicals, labor. Those are the three big cost centers when it comes to water treatment. When you get out to our distribution group, it really is about boots on the ground. These are people in the field working in the trenches, making sure that the water pipes are getting connected and the water services. So what you see is that it's almost 50% plus of personnel, and then about 10% or 20%, 20%, not quite, but 20% of all of the other cost centers. But it really is all about getting people on the ground and getting the work done. And usually it's when the weather is at its worst and you're hip deep in a main break, and they definitely earn their money. So water debt service, the reason I did want to talk this through is we paid off the debt on Reservoir 3 in FY24, and then we had 1 year of no debt service payment, and unfortunately the first loans have kicked in, and we will be making our first debt service payment in December at $541,000 to Business Oregon, and then that will scale up as we take on additional debt. And that extra money that we didn't make that debt service went straight into the project to help buy down that future debt. So. And then just as a summary to kind of wrap up all of the, oh no, this is just water operations, sorry about that. So the reason this one is here, if you look, there is a new cost center, and that is personnel services. And so when we talk about the water division picking up the 1.2 FTEs and the wastewater picking up the 0.8, so that's our 2 meter readers. We had originally put that in the distribution group and the 0.8 in the collection group, but when you think about it, out reading the meters to get the billing done really is not, that cost center doesn't belong in our collection system. It does not belong in our water distribution center. We need to appropriate it more to where it's hitting that. So our water operations pays for our customer service, our billing, those types of things. So it made more sense to relocate those personnel to here. And that's why we're seeing that charge of a personnel cost come into this cost center. And it's just really trying to make sure that we account for the costs appropriately and to the right cost center. And then it doesn't make it look like our distribution group costs more than it really does.
Sorry, Terry.
Jason, I know I might be jumping ahead here, but can you help me track that, what you were just talking about, that FTE to page 257? Is that the office assistant position listed on 257?
You are way ahead. 257?
He's way ahead.
He's way ahead.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm tracking.
Okay, he's in Public Works Admin.
Wow. Give me a second.
I don't think that's...
Okay, so that's on the Public Works Admin side, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. So what we did is we, 257, got it, 25, we were at 8, and we're at 8. So in 25, yep, we were at 7.5, so we reduced the 0.5, which was an office assistant assigned to Public Works Admin. The intent of that was to help with all of the grant administration and the billing on the water treatment plant project. As it turns out, we're not going to need that position, and we never filled it. So then what we did is we took an office assistant, and that was in a field crews, and we reallocated it to here. And then if you go back to, say, water, and you look at the FTE in the distribution group, and I'm trying to get to that page for you, hang on one second, which is on page 200. You'll see that there was an office assistant at the top of that, and FY26 it is 0. It results in a net decrease of 0.5 to that program because it was paid 50% from distribution, 50% from collection. Yes. So it is a net 0, it's just changing the way that it gets billed out.
Joel?
I appreciate your patience in trying to make me understand this. The transfers out are capital improvement projects, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the transfer, and that includes the water treatment plant,
Yes.
amongst others. It's not the sole one.
Yep.
And the transfers out in '25 were $8 million, and the transfers out in '26 are, about 16, 17% less.
Yep.
Why is that?
Couple of reasons. I think we ended up with a much higher fund balance at the end of FY24. And so because we spent less or we received more revenues than we had budgeted for, and so we were then able to transfer more in FY25 than we are in FY26.
So, but water's pretty steady, right? I mean, it's not.
It is, but if, say, Adam underspends his budget by $1 million, when I get to the end of the year, I've got an extra $1 million that comes in on the revenue side.
Sure.
And so I might be able to make a bigger transfer the following year.
And put it forth to capital. Okay,
Yeah.
that just seems like a pretty significant
It
savings.
was, yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Adriana?
I am embarrassed I don't know this answer. We talked about the caveman pool on Tuesday and some of the costs for that. Does any of this budget for water consider a caveman pool, or they're just separate budgets?
Only on the revenue side.
What do you mean?
Because they buy water, but no, there's nothing in the water budget for the pool. Sorry, Brad. Right. So, water capital. Same thing here where we have more resources coming in and then out. So it really is just that holding project. So we want to start right in with our capital projects. Page 71, which is the water treatment plant replacement project, and it is on page 71 of the budget book. And we're going to be transferring in an additional $200,000 of water system development charges, 4.1 of water capital, hopefully realizing another $11.5 million from Business Oregon, a $2 million congressional appropriation, and hopefully keep the project moving forward. Okay. Chair?
Tom?
Jason, I noticed that the Monday workshop agenda includes further discussion of this topic. Would it be reasonable to return to this on Tuesday?
It could. What we'll be talking about on Tuesday is some potential options that council can consider to fill the gap that was left by the BRIC program cancellation.
I meant, would it be reasonable for the Budget Committee to review the presentation from Monday's workshop?
Yeah, or even tune in. It should be a really good, it should be a good workshop. Yep.
Kurt?
You mentioned that the water plant design was pretty well locked down.
Yeah.
You know, in the process of getting to that point, the federal government, besides taking away our grant, lowered a lot of water quality standards, and PFAS being probably the most recognized one.
Yeah.
So my question is, in the design that we have now, are we still addressing the PFAS requirements from before when they existed?
So no. That's the short answer. The much longer issue is we have been monitoring for PFAS on the Rogue River, and it is not an issue for our water supply at this time, so it doesn't make sense to install treatment for it at this time.
So that monitoring will continue?
Yes.
Forever?
depending on what EPA regulates. Right now, it's just part of what we chose to do as operators to get ahead of the rule that we saw coming down the pipeline. Because we were in design, one of the things we didn't want to do, we knew it was coming. We needed to find out where it was, whether we needed to react to it, and our levels in the Rogue River are so low, it is not worth reacting to at this juncture.
Did that save us a lot of money in the final design?
Millions and millions of dollars.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay. Small main replacement, this is on page 74. This project is another one of our sinking fund projects where we try to fund it at $100 to $150 to $200,000 per year. And it really is to replace old and undersized water mains that are throughout the community. I think the one we're talking about now is, what was the name of the street? Conger, and it has like a 1-inch water main that services quite a few houses with meters tapped off of it, the whole thing. Back in the day, 40s, 50s, 60s, there were some crazy things put in the ground. So we're going back and trying to correct all of those. We did a big one a couple years ago where we replaced a 2-inch water main that was serving, boy, it was about 15 houses. The people at the end of the line in the summer complained frequently because of all the use on that line. Their pressure was very low. So we're able to go back, bring those lines all up to standard. This is the project that we used to do that with. Okay. Redwood Highway Looping. This is project WA6362, and it's on page 65 or 75 of your capital book. This is a big project, and we're really excited about it. We're going to get it started one way or the other, I think this fall, right? Yep, I just got the nod. The project's going to install about 9,700 feet of 16-inch water line. That is over a mile, getting close to 2 miles. It'll run along Redwood Highway on the south side. And open up quite a bit of property to development, in addition to creating a very important redundant loop for us in that area. We are going to fund it with an additional $3.1 million of water capital so that we can get this done. It should be noted, though, that this project is currently in 2 bills at the state capitol, and hoping that one of those gets approved. And if that money does get approved, we will take these dollars here and move those to the water plant, and then use the state dollars to build the Redwood Highway looping. But either case, we are prepared to get this water line done. It has been on our list as a very high priority. There is a point in the water system, if the main were to break, the entire Redwood area goes down. That's just, we can't wait on that any longer. This line has got to get installed, so we're going to get it done. And it is nearly fully funded, and it is 100% designed and ready to go. So, okay. WA6415, Reservoir and Pump Station Communication Upgrade. This is a project that is going to update our SCADA system to all of our remote sites. Our current system was installed in like 1995, 1996, in that range. It has been superseded many times, but it would still keep on running. The problem is, as we move to the new water treatment plant, we don't want to take all of this old hardware to the new water treatment plant. So we want to get that communication system updated so that we can just install the new radio, instantly pick up our communications. The project, we've been putting money away for a little bit. We're trying to get a little bit more in here so that we can get this done just ahead of the water treatment plant coming online. So we'll bring it online at the same time.
Rick?
Jason, does that include, at one point we were looking at seismic devices on some of the reservoirs. Is this part of that?
It is indirectly. So what you're referring to is Shake Alert. So we do participate in Shake Alert. The new reservoir that we're building has a Shake Alert actuated valve. What this will do will just install essentially real-time communication data on all of our reservoirs so that when we tie into the Shake Alert system, we can send that data to anywhere instantly to take action. So we don't have to install that Shake Alert system at every location.
Then what you're saying, opening and shutting that valve can be electronically, you don't have to send somebody out physically.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we actually, just an interesting fact, you never shut it all the way because that can create big problems. So if you have a big main break and you shut the valve, it can create a vacuum and create a bigger problem. So we actually shut them to like 95%, even though you still have a ton of water coming out somewhere. At least then your pipes stay together and you don't break anything worse. So, okay. This is a new project. This is WA 6451. I believe we've been in front of council with this one once before. This project is going to replace 2 very old pressure reducing valves in the northeast part of town. So we are broken up into pressure zones. The city of Grants Pass is a bowl. The water plant we put at the bottom of the bowl, and we pump water up, 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 up. There's a couple of places where we bleed that water back down into lower zones to save some money. These 2 pressure zones have been in place since the late 70s. They're in really horrible locations. We actually had one fail, which you only find when somebody's water pressure is too high, and we actually blew out somebody's garden hose and alerted us to a problem, and we were able to get out there and get it taken care of. But we need to replace these 2 valves in pretty short order. At the same time, we need to move them out of, one of them is literally in the traffic lane over at Lawn Ridge Park. The other is in a very, very narrow section of sidewalk on the northeast over there. So we're going to work on these. We're going to set some money aside. We're completing the final design. It'll be a phased project so we can get in there and get it done and hopefully improve service for all of those folks. And back to the other book. And y'all let me know if you need a break. How was that? I'm a little early, but otherwise I'm going to keep powering through because we're going to get you out of here early tonight. So wastewater services, this is on pages 208 to 223 of your budget book. Great photo of the construction. I think Gary would agree that project was incredibly successful. He has been so happy since the new aeration basin came online. It really is kind of amazing the work that they did, and the retrofitting of the entire electrical system at the wastewater plant made a huge difference for him and the team. So just opposite of the water group where we are treating and distributing, this one we are conveying, treating, and discharging to the Rogue River all of the city's wastewater. They are also monitoring all of the SIUs, that is a significant industrial users with industrial pretreatment program. They are maintaining the collection system, pump and lift stations, all of the piping system. We have 5 pump and lift stations. The difference between a pump and a lift station is a pump station pressurizes the wastewater in the line. A lift station pumps the wastewater up and then dumps it into a gravity line at a higher level, and it just starts traveling by gravity again. So a little bit different. The pumping is much, much different. It takes a lot more oomph to pressurize a line and pump it than the other way. An example is Redwood and Darneal, which are 2 of our largest. They are pump stations. They actually pump wastewater, pressurized wastewater over 5 miles to get it back to across the pedestrian bridge at Reinhardt Park before it goes back to gravity. Anyway, ranging in size from 100 to 1,500 gallons, sizes of 4 to 48 inches. Wastewater pipes get very big. Our same customer service group that are reporting overflows, taking care of our billing. The 2 programs, we have 5.8 recommended this year in collection, 8 in treatment with 0.8 as we talked about in our wastewater operations group. So overall program budget, wastewater collections is up slightly. That's largely due to the addition of the FTEs. Gary and his team, he has cycled through. We had one retiree who'd been with the city for a really long time retire this past year. Was a big loss for us, but then we had another junior employee come in, so we dropped that down, and then some other costs just aligning with the new treatment regimen. Wastewater operations is also down. Wastewater projects is up, again, just due to transfers and how we're holding. And then debt service holds steady at $1.2 million per year. On the revenue side, beginning balance down, again, just trying to maximize our capital transfers, or what we're guesstimating our capital transfers to be. Sewage fees are roughly going to hold flat, a little bit up. Interest, again, trying to take advantage of JC's wizardry and the financial folks that we've got working for us now, and then just transfer more into our capital projects. Starting on the collection side, this budget is up overall $97,000 on the $1.2 million. We see the big shift from the contractual to direct charges. And then the direct charges is a little bit up. I'm working with Shane and his team. The equipment that it takes to clean the sewers is incredibly expensive, so we're trying to accelerate some of that replacement schedule to make sure that if we do have a catastrophic failure, we're funded and able to react to that. And wastewater collections is almost all personnel except for the purchasing of the equipment. It's really about getting people out in the field, spending the hours, TVing, cleaning. I can't tell you how important it is. The weekly update this week actually was really good. We were responding to a frequently cleaned line, and unfortunately, somebody's grease trap was failed, and the line was nearly plugged with grease, and the team got out there and found it and cleaned it, and somebody is grateful that the line didn't back up. On the treatment side, this budget is actually down slightly overall, but holding pretty steady. Gary and his team do an amazing job. We're holding in at about 136 under and just shifting around for the cost centers, and then also personnel down because of losing the older retirees and younger staff coming in at the bottom of the pay scale. And then debt service. This debt service has been ramping up slightly over the last couple of years. We have paid off our last bond issue, the 23, and then the new winners will hold flat. And we're paying interest only on one and principal on it, principal and interest on another, because that was done in 2 loans. And those are actually on page 345 if you're interested in looking at that in more detail, which has, excuse me, the entire debt service schedule in Appendix P. The wastewater debt service does not pay off till fiscal 38.
Jason, on page 214, it shows direct operations and maintenance costs per million gallons treated. In 2022 and 23, it was $872. Now it's up to almost $1,400. That's remarkable.
Well, so I want to clarify that. So that's actually the goal, and I know that that sounds like a horrible way to repeat the goal. We subscribe to several trade organizations, American Water Works Association, the Water Environment Federation, and they take surveys of the cost to treat wastewater across the nation in regions, utilities of similar size, similar treatment, and those are the numbers that we are seeing across the nation. I think when you see the actual, so like the 23-24, the goal, and it's not a goal, it's kind of, that's that midpoint, it's the wrong word that's there, but we were $200 per million gallons under. So again, while it says 1,300, we're going to come under that. That is definitely always our goal. So those others aren't real numbers just yet. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, Tom.
My question is on the same table that you were looking at on page 214. The line below is energy consumption per million gallons, and there was a significant improvement there. And the timing of that makes me think it might have to do with the anaerobic digester?
Yes. Yeah,
are there other ways that energy efficiency has been accomplished?
Yeah, so the change out in the aeration basins and the new blowers that were installed have allowed us to be much more efficient. So the old ones were pretty much you turn them on and you blow and you blow and you blow. This one now we use what's called DO control, and so we can set the exact oxygen level, dissolved oxygen level that we want in the basins, and we will only apply enough air to maintain that level. That helps to save us energy and dollars.
The reason I ask is that the city uses about $1.6 million a year of energy in all its forms.
Yep.
And when you look at the use of electricity, it's the water collection, water distribution, treatment, wastewater pumping, and so forth, use a lot of energy. And in order to become more efficient and reduce the amount of energy, it means investing in capital equipment that will be more efficient. For example, pumps. Are there more efficient pumps available that may cost a little more, but would that improved efficiency be worth it?
Yeah, almost all of the projects that we do today, we evaluate all of our equipment for efficiency. You do reach, especially with pumping, you reach a point where you can get 95, 97% efficiency, and that's about as max as you're ever going to get without spending really, really significant amounts of capital dollars. Really what we look at for benefit, things like blowers, which are super power intensive. You look at things like DO control to where you can minimize the amount of air that you're applying to make sure that you're hitting those targets. At the water plant, when we do the new water treatment plant, you know, the pumps are all in that 95, 97% efficiency range, but they'll all be driven with VFDs so that we can maximize the speed at the minimum kilowatts and maintain the optimal pressure all the way through the system. So we do those things as just a course because it saves money on treatment. That's really what it boils down to. And the lower the treatment costs, the less money I'm here asking you guys for each year. So,
well, the improved efficiency you've shown is very good.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and his natural gas bill dropped a lot last year too, as you recall, from the digester project and being able to reduce that boiler gas. It's not been flawless, but it's been pretty darn good, right? Yep. So, okay. So again, the operations, this is kind of that program ops. We are seeing the 0.8 FTE in the program. Overall, this one is down, but again, it comes down to the contingencies, just maximizing that, trying to maximize our transfers out while still accounting for increased costs elsewhere.
Joel?
Again, Jason, I appreciate your understanding that you have contingencies in 25 and 26.
Yep.
And you have ending balance in 23 and 24 with no contingencies.
What page are you on, sir?
On 218.
Thank you. I can see JC. He was already reaching for the microphone.
Yeah, and so I was wondering, there seemed to be a switch in accounting, which I think I can understand.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, I wonder about is the starting balance for the 25 budget. It would be the ending balance from the previous year, correct?
Yes.
So I'll answer your first question last. Yes, your ending balance of 1 year begins your balance for the next year. We budget a contingency, but you never spend your contingency, and so in the actuals it should be zero. And then that will actually move it to a fund balance, an ending fund balance accounting-wise for the actuals. It's just budgetarily, we put it in as a contingency to give maximum flexibility to council and the programs in the event of a situation.
Now, you guys are the professionals, but it would seem to, you folks are the professionals, and I respect that, but it would seem to me as an amateur that if you have a ending balance each year that is in the millions, and that's part of your beginning budget for next year, that would continue to build at some point in time and need to be pared down.
No, because we'll actually, through rebudgeting every year, that fund balance will stay pretty consistent from year to year to year. Okay. We're going to maintain it at 25%. Whether that means we transfer more to capital or operation costs go up and we transfer less to capital, but we're going to try and maintain that at the very bottom of the fund balance policy of roughly 25 to 35%.
So if I understand what you say, in fiscal 23, we had an ending balance of 2.1 million. In fiscal year 24, we had an ending balance of 3.0 million. Our contingency fund that could be the same as the ending balance if we don't spend it, was 1.8. We don't know what it is yet. I would guess that it would be higher than that, but wouldn't be significantly higher than the 3 million? Is that what I hear you saying?
So it could, depending on did we, say, underestimate revenues too much? Or did we receive more revenue than what we anticipated? Did we underspend by a significant margin is another one that, say we lost 3 long-term employees in the middle of a year. That would make a pretty big hit. And so that number could be significantly higher than what we budgeted if we greatly underspent.
So at some point in time, then the ending balance would need to go down, or the contingency would need to go down.
Yeah,
in
and
our
we would
balancing
adjust
for
that
out
in the
years.
next budget year.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And we're switching books again. So SE000 on page 87 of your capital. This one is just to show that we are transferring about $3.1 million into, from operations into our capital program. And planning on JC earning us $400,000 in interest. Which we like. So SE 5080, this is water restoration plant structural repairs. So the water restoration plant is a living, breathing plant, and it has quite a few needs. We try to fund this with about $100,000 annually so that we're able to tackle small structural problems with the building or some of the outdoor tankage, and just gives us some flexibility to not have to, we can react very quick to a problem that we see developing.
Joel?
I need to stop asking questions. This will be my last question unless something happens. But so then you have money associated with wastewater projects, wastewater operations, debt service, water treatment. So those different funds, can they be interchangeable?
Great question. Should have led with that, shouldn't I? That was like my lead-in. No.
Okay.
I cannot take water funds and spend them on wastewater operations.
You can't take wastewater operations and spend them on water treatment?
I cannot. Now, there is a subtle difference.
Okay.
So I am doing a transportation project. That transportation project has a water line in it. It has a sewer line in it. I can have water dollars in there, sewer dollars in there, but they can only pay for their portion of that project. That is the extension of that water main.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
By law, that is the case.
We'd like to give you that flexibility.
Okay. SE 6200, this is Spalding Industrial Park, wastewater infrastructure upgrade. This is a project we've been working on for a few years. It is a challenging project. The Spalding area is one of our largest industrial areas. It is also at the very fringes of all of our system, and it is incredibly difficult to serve it out there. So this project is actually, I think we're getting really close to having construction-ready drawings to be able to build the wastewater collection system, which will get us all the way up to the creek and over. So we're pretty excited. We are applying for grant funds for this. In addition to, this project is also identified in a bill in the current state legislature to help us to fund this project, because we're still a ways off from having all of the fiscal resources we need to complete the project. Okay. Page 93, 6239, water restoration plant equipment improvement. Again, a sinking fund. We try to fund it about $50,000. We did purchase this down, so we spent some money out of it. We are just bumping it back up with $150,000 this year. The project is replacing and refurbishing some of the equipment in there. The pumps that are in there are hundreds of thousands of dollars a piece, so it makes a lot of sense to refurbish them on a very, very frequent basis as opposed to trying to replace them on a more regular basis. And as you'll see it, we go out for a pump rebuild, I think at every facility every year or more. It's very cost effective. Although there are nobody in nearby area that works on our pumps. They all go Portland and Idaho and other places. Okay. Redwood area pump station and river crossing. I think we touched on this one in transportation a little bit. This project is continuing to accumulate funds to identify an additional pumping option to get a second crossing over the Rogue River. The Redwood area is growing. It collects a lot of wastewater. There is a single line that gets that wastewater from that side of the river to the side that the wastewater treatment plant is on. We do need a second line at some point. I said there's one line. There is one line on the bridge. There is two lines, so we have a redundant line all the way up to the bridge. But at that point, they combine into a single line and cross the bridge, the pedestrian bridge, and enter a manhole. We desperately need a secondary crossing somewhere to give us some redundancy and to allow us to increase flows over time. So we'll be continuing to look at that. We've identified several locations. Now it's just going to be time to dial in on one of those locations.
Jason, with new technology, is there any opportunity for a modular wastewater treatment plant that we could locate there rather than pipe across the river because of the distance?
So maybe. You know, the hard part with that is trying to permit a secondary outfall into the Rogue River might be much more of a challenge than just siting a plant there. So that there, yes. I mean, when we start looking at these things over and over, we'll try to come up with all the options that are out there. There, as you recall, Redwood used to be a treatment plant, but they were in a lot of problems with bad discharge. That discharge point was eliminated from the Rogue River. Now, to get a new discharge point permitted on the Rogue River, I think could take you 5-10 years alone to discharge wastewater into the Rogue River. So, very challenging. Okay. SE 6423, this is the Water Restoration Plant UV Disinfection Replacement Program. It's on page 98 of your capital. Several decades ago, we used to use chlorine gas to disinfect the wastewater before it was discharged back to the Rogue River. As you know, chlorine gas is a very deadly gas. We then also had to deplete that chlorine residual with chlorine dioxide, which is another very deadly gas. So we switched to UV light. It works far better, but it does consume a fair amount of power. We do need to replace our original unit, which was installed in 97, thank you. I knew it was like, I was right at 2000. It's served us very well. So we're trying to get that funded for a future project. This is a new project. This is SE 6445, and it is the M Street Sewer Capacity Enhancement. It is one of the higher priority projects identified in our collection system master plan. This is a very unique area. It is where M Street, J Street, and Mill kind of come together. And somewhere along the line, they were having a hard time getting flow through the manholes. And so they put in a new line that was kind of at a 45-degree angle ahead of them. It's bad. And we still can't get enough flow through it, so we need to get through this section. It basically takes it from the railroad track. Are we going all the way to M?
This one actually goes to
7th, all the way down to 7th with a pipe project. It'll be a while before it's fully funded, but we're going to start to get it built and in place. And another new one, this is a project actually that we had a pre-bid meeting for today. It is the secondary clarifier refurbishment. These clarifiers were installed decades ago. This is just going to take out the inner workings, coat them in place or recoat them in place, rebuild the drive mechanisms, put it back in, and it'll run for another 20 or 30 years. It's a pretty neat project. And pretty low cost, so, as wastewater projects go. Okay. Back to the other book. The good news is, I think, we're pretty much done with the capital book, if I'm not mistaken. There's still capital project, but I don't think there's any that received funding. I'm looking at Wade. He's giving me the evil eye. Yeah. Thank you, Kira. So page 244 to 233, our solid waste budget is very limited, and it really is to handle post-closure operations of the Merlin landfill. We do say that there's limited franchise management, but largely that is handled through the Solid Waste Agency of Grants Pass. And then the city of Grants Pass operates as the operations manager for that group, but almost all of it is handled for the agency or the franchise management. So the primary purpose is the post-closure monitoring of the closed Merlin landfill. It handles all the sampling and reporting, maintenance of the cover and all of the surrounding properties, and any other actions ordered by the DEQ. What I will say about the Merlin landfill, there is contamination, it is declining, but we're going to be responsible for this forever, and it'll be an ongoing issue. The good news is we have worked with some really great consultants over the last, thank you, Wade. Eric Tuppen, unfortunately, he had just retired. But he was able to, through that program, I think we got our air quality permit removed. We got our water quality permit removed, which was discharging to the surface water. He did some amazing things working with us for the DEQ that has minimized the amount of work that we have to do on this landfill forever. So, but we still have to maintain all the gas wells. We still have to do extensive testing of landfill wells and around the area. It is a big, big job. We also have to manage the properties around the Merlin landfill, and that includes 425 acres of property that are in that contamination plume. It is the smallest of our budgets. It realistically does not have resources. And while it says landfill fees on the screen behind me, it's very important to note those are the dollars that we receive back as we spend them, if I'm not mistaken. And so it is not really, we have an insurance policy that pays us back for the dollars that we spend on it. That was a very good deal that was purchased decades ago.
There's a question.
Thank you. Tom?
Regarding that insurance policy, I believe the Solid Waste Agency was asked to take over those costs?
They have not been asked to take over those costs yet. The Solid Waste Agency pays for 100% of the maintenance of the Kirby landfill and the Marlson Lagoon landfill. Thank you. We still are operating under an insurance policy that was purchased by the city prior to the landfill closure that pays 100% of the post-closure costs, or nearly 100%. I'm going to say every now and then they balk at us a little bit, but 100% of those costs. So what we have been working with the agency is just kind of prepping them, getting them ready that they're going to have to take over these costs, which is what the Solid Waste Agency was developed for, was to pay landfill remediation costs in Josephine County.
So that will have quite a budget impact on the Solid Waste Agency.
Potentially. As you can see, we're budgeting roughly $100,000 in landfill fees this year. We just changed consultants this year because I said Eric Tuppen retired. The new consultant's a little more expensive than Eric was. Eric had it just down to a science. He knew exactly what to do. It was so much more efficient. These new people are still learning where all the wells are, how to get the sampling done. I hope over time that cost will come down with them as well as they get more efficient. But it's about, it'll be $158,000 a year, maybe. So.
Rick?
So Jason, the landfill, even though it's owned by the city, was used to be used by the county as well. Do they contribute to any of our expenses?
No, they do not.
Thank you.
Conversely, I'm going to give them a little bit here. We don't contribute to Kirby or Marlson, which we probably did, maybe not to Kirby, but to Marlson, we surely did. So field operations, this is just a little bit of personnel costs that we use for our staff time to help to manage all of this stuff. They're very small dollars. And then this is primarily where all that contractual work handles for the post-closure operations. And largely that is reimbursed 100%. We don't have a lot of revenue coming back into this program. So we have a lot of great people. Gary's team actually monitors and maintain the gas wells. Wade helps to coordinate all of the sampling and closure activities. And then we also pay for a portion of the urban forester to manage all of the properties that are out there. And largely, it's all done through contracting, except for that small bit. It's just more efficient. This is not work that city staff does. It's not our bag. We can do water and wastewater. Landfill stuff gets a little bit more complicated. So support services is the last group of programs collectively, and this includes our Public Works Administration, our engineering group, facilities management, facilities replacement, garage operations, and equipment replacement programs. So Public Works Administration provides the physical support, management, and capital program development to all of the Public Works divisions. How we used to be structured is that we would just, our salary would appear in little pieces in everybody's budget. And if we were coding things, we would have to code it back to everybody's budget. What we decided years ago was to create a Public Works Administration. All of the Public Works Division pay into that same, it's the same thing, but it just doesn't break it out. It's a much easier system for everybody. And that includes just the salaries for the Public Works Director, the Assistant Director, the Business Operations Supervisor, Department Support Tech, and Office Assistant, which is the new one that came over from the field crews, and then also our entire GIS division, which is in this budget a supervisor and 2 technicians, one level 1 and one level 2, with 8.5 people. The budget is largely all indirect charges or direct charges to our departments. And we keep our beginning balance very low. I want to say the fund balance on this one may not even be in the fund balance policy, huh? Because it's such a new program, JC. But it's in the 10%, 12%, because it's an internal service.
Yeah, and we'll look at changing that potentially with the large revision of the financial policies.
And it is almost all personnel. We don't have a lot of materials and supplies. We do contract for a fair amount of services, and we do pay for all of our square footages, similar to all of the other divisions. And as you can see, our contingencies, we're pulling those down to try and get down into that fund balance. The reason it was so high in '25, we administered several capital projects, planning projects for facilities. A lot of that money got turned back into this contingency. And as we're pulling that contingency down, what we do that is we reduce rates to our internal customers as a result, and that helps us to buy that down over time. Again, as you can see, really is personnel heavy budget. Engineering division, this is Wade's crew. Woo, go engineering. They are the guys that are out there getting all the stuff built. They really are gems. The program is responsible for all new and refurbished public infrastructure, not just the city's projects, but developer installed projects as well. It is up to that group to inspect all of the developer installed improvements to ensure that they meet city standards and are going to last us for a generation or more. They are responsible for bidding, recommendation for award of city projects, and that includes the oversight and inspection services. They are funded by fees and internal and direct charges to their customers. Largely, mostly to the internal customers than external. Our external fees are low, again, to help facilitate development, similar to the conversation that we had with Brad yesterday. We subsidize that from the internal side. There are a total of 6 FTEs, and this includes our surveyor, 3 engineering techs, those are the guys that are actually out, guys and gals in the field inspecting, a department support tech, and the city engineer, who is a contract person. He's not actually part of that 6 FTE. Looking at the overall budget, it is up about 111,000, largely on the personnel side. We were fully staffed. We actually just lost one a little bit ago, so that number is going to go down a little, but we're putting out the notice to refill that position. There's still quite a bit of work. Even though development is down, the city has put out quite a bit of capital projects, and they're all over the place, and we're spread a little bit thin. We currently have a project going on with Berlin Airport, which keeps an inspector out there quite a bit. In addition to now we have one working nights because all of the work on 5th Street is being done in the middle of the night, in addition to Meadowood, which is on the complete opposite side of the valley. So these guys are hopping busy. Looking at where those dollars are, you can see that personnel is up just a little. Largely, it's pretty evenly split across the contractual and professional services and the direct charges. This one also saw that shift, but you see that contractual services went up more. We've been utilizing the city engineer a lot. Middle Housing has thrown the engineering division quite a bit of a curveball, so we have a lot more billable hours from our contract employee, the contract engineer, than we have in the past couple of years. Just trying to make sure we get it right the first time. We don't like do-overs in engineering, because once you build it and bury it, it gets a lot harder to fix, so we want to get it right. And again, no major adjustments, pretty flat, mostly just staff progressing through their steps. Facilities management, those are the team who are doing amazing things with their building. They're the ones to blame for all of this mess that you see around us and the holes in the roof that you can see the daylight through. It is incredibly needed. The roof was well past its life cycle. The tiles were starting to break. The gutter system had failed entirely, and we were able to get that fixed at a pretty reasonable price. Hopefully they get done early. We've been working with the contractor to try and really hurry them along, but make sure the quality of work is very high standard. But that team has been amazing. Guy Canova, which is back there in the middle, I knew I saw him, and his team really have set a new standard for facilities management in the city of Grants Pass, and we have definitely shifted to a more proactive level of management for all of the city facilities that we operate, to try and stay ahead and not be doing reactive maintenance, but let's get ahead of it and do maintenance before it becomes a huge capital project like this. Really great job. We're super happy. There are three FTEs for the program, and that includes Guy, the superintendent. We have a municipal specialist and a municipal service worker who do all of that work, including, and I know that Mike and James aren't here, they have been doing almost all of the work on the resting sites. They're the ones that have been taking the fences up, taking the fences down, getting the fences put up, getting all the contracting arranged. I can't thank them enough for the work that they've been doing on that. Definitely was outside of their area. When it was in parks, the parks guys were doing it, but they're feeling it. So largely all of this work is done through contractual and professional services. We have contracts for janitorial, security and alarm services. We hire plumbers, electricians, HVAC. Similar to, as Brad was saying, we keep a lot of people in Grants Pass working on our stuff. They are responsible for the building fencing and grounds repair. They are also training and temporary staff as part of our contractual, and then a lot of small equipment repairs that they'll contract out. So as the program continues to evolve, as you recall a few years ago, we went and did an assessment of all of the facilities, and they identified multiple areas where we needed to improve. I think I can speak pretty much 100% for sure that we have hit every one of those areas. And we have now moved the entire system onto our asset management system. So we are tracking all of that maintenance, and the team has just done an incredible, incredible job at a pretty good price for the service. I think it is. So their budget is also reasonably flat. It did go up a little bit, and that contingency, as we see that floating, we're trying to keep the rates pretty steady, but costs from year to year fluctuate a lot with the facilities based on what has to be replaced. is, as we look into the future and we adopt our financial policies, what we may see is a slight rate decrease to pull that contingency down. So they were one of the ones that we saw yet on Tuesday that are above the fund balance policy by a significant margin. But we don't want to pull that all down in 1 year because they are internally rate driven. The last thing we want to do is drop everybody's rates and then raise them back up the next year. So we'll try to pull that down slowly over a couple of years. Yeah.
Chairman?
Tom?
Page 261, before you get too far away from it.
Yep.
There's a great report there about City Hall electricity reduction of 10%. That's improvement in efficiency that will save money in the long run. And if all of the departments were able to reduce their energy usage by 10%, that would reduce cost by about $160,000 a year across all of those functions. And there's a great graph there showing electricity usage. In the future, I would hope we could see more data like that, perhaps an appendix on energy usage that would allow the Budget Committee to review efforts to improve efficiency and perhaps make suggestions for further success.
Noted. So our newest program, and this is on page 265 to 266, and this is new last year. It is Fund 835. And it is our Facilities Capital Replacement Fund. So one of the two studies that were done, one was a PAVE audit on the facilities group itself. The second was an assessment of all of the city's facilities, identified the need to start setting aside money for large-scale capital projects because we were not doing that. So this fund was created to do that, exactly that thing. So we are now setting aside money at 2 of our major facilities. We're hoping to expand that in the future, but right now it is limited to City Hall. So all of the tenants in this building pay an additional fee, which is a capital replacement fee. And then all of the tenants at our city yard do the same thing because that's our second largest facility with the most number of tenants and some pretty old rickety buildings that need to be replaced in the near future. We're pretty proud of this one. It is what's allowing us to rebuild this roof currently, and it will be allowing us to start building some smaller facilities and making some repairs at the city yard here in the in a few years. As you can see, it's starting small, but all good things do. The big difference on this one between FY25 and FY26, we closed out a capital planning project that brought in $580,000, and then we were anticipating having to borrow from our internal service funds that $700,000 to complete the roof project. But because of JC and his magical interest earnings, we were actually able, I'm not going to say magical interest earnings, but because we were able to transfer some additional interest from the LB000, we did not have to borrow $700,000, which is huge because now we won't have to pay that back as well out of this fund. So now the money that we're showing being set aside is going to go directly back into that capital project and build funds for the next major project. So that was a good investment, good use of the interest earnings that we are now earning on a regular basis. So the change in the financial policies really benefited the city's users. Okay, garage operations. So this is where all of our fleet rolling stock is coming in and going out. The service levels there that is really providing high quality automotive maintenance service with all of the equipment replacement behind that. It is incredibly busy shop. We have 2 mechanics that take care of, and I want to say it's like 230 some vehicles, and that ranges in everything from a sedan, lawnmower, all the way up to $850,000 fire apparatus. The team is amazing, really truly are. It is very busy shop. It costs a significant amount for us to run that shop, but what we benefit from is the ability at any time to drive a vehicle in, get it serviced, and get back on the street. You don't have to make an appointment or carry a bunch of extra vehicles so that you can schedule appointments in at all of the stores or at Mock Fords. It has been a very efficient operation. It has worked very well. It is fully funded through user rates to our customers. And we've set our rate at just enough to break even to keep the shop doors open. It does not make money. And all the same changes, contractual services are down. This is another one that's a very, very challenging budget to budget. The way that the fleet budget is created for calendar year 24, we bill all of that work that we performed this fiscal year. So we're 18 months behind. We do the work last year and we bill for it this year. And it sounds silly, but there's a really, really good reason for it, because what was happening was we were billing out as we go. The chief brings me a truck, it breaks, we fix it, we send him a bill. Well, what happens is from year to year, his budget spikes, and he didn't plan for that. So now, by billing 18 months arrears, we're able to plan ahead for that, and then he can bill that out the next year and make equal payments. But it does put some challenges on our team to be able to make sure that we have enough resources for this year to take those and absorb those differences and then bill it out 18 months later. So it works, but it's a little bit of work.
Jason, I'm going to have you pause right here. Mindy has a blue page. Oh, we had a hidden row, and so there's a mistake.
Do I have it? Okay. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's that? Come man, I am like on target. Stop. Got my eye on you. So equipment replacement budget, and now apparently my numbers are not going to match the ones that are on the screen here. They should be really close. Okay, got it. Oh, it was another one of those hidden rows. Got it. So similar to our facilities capital, the way that we fund our equipment replacement fee is when we buy a new vehicle, we pay for it with cash, and then we start buying the next one. So we immediately start making payments to ourselves to set aside resources to purchase the next vehicle. That helps to smooth out the budgets of all of our individual divisions to ensure that if I have to go buy 5 vehicles, I don't need to come up with a cash payment of $200,000, or in the case of a fire truck or Vector trucks, $650,000, $700,000, $800,000. So by setting these dollars aside from year to year, it helps to even that out. But it does mean that the equipment replacement fund does sit on quite a bit of cash, and it is held in reserve for that individual vehicle, and we can go in and track how much money is in every vehicle within our billing system. It gives a lot of transparency to the system. So it's it's a very robust system. A lot of challenges. There is no labor here, and when we're looking at spending about $2.4 million on vehicles. You'll notice on the fire apparatus line, we're carrying 1.7 for 25 and 1.6. The reason is those trucks are purchased and paid for, but they haven't arrived, so we haven't actually taken them off the books, as it were. So we have to carry those dollars and say that we're going to spend them, even though we authorized the purchase a year ago or more. Until we actually receive it, we still have to carry those dollars in there. So it's not like we're buying another new truck, because you probably are all going, wait, didn't we already pay for those? And we're not buying another one in 26, but it might arrive in 26. So at that point, we have to then move the money. Challenges right now, though, are really big in this division. Buying vehicles today is, oh my gosh, a challenge, especially PPV vehicles for police pursuit vehicles, PPV. The last time we bought Tahoes, Chevy opened the window for less than 8 hours, And then they limited our order quantity to 4. We were only able to order 4 vehicles, which was very frustrating. The other thing is that outfitting police and fire vehicles, they have become incredibly technical, computer-driven machines. Upfitting averages are now pushing 20 to 30,000 with all of the required pieces that go into those vehicles. So vehicle costs continue to increase, and we really balance the trade-off. I will say we ran these last Tahoes too long, and I think the chief will agree with me. We were really trying to maximize the value, but I think we went a year, maybe 2 years, I just got the 2 from Ari, just a little bit too long. And so what we've seen is an increase in breakdown frequency, which means the trucks they're spending too much time in the shop. So we're gonna try and really maximize that, plan a little bit more, replace them about the 8-year mark instead of the 10-year mark. 10 was just pushing it too far. And we wanna have them fully funded probably by year 7 so that that money is there and ready to go. Especially with being so hard, because when we ordered them, they may not arrive for a year and a half, is the other goofy thing with vehicles right now.
Joel.
Just had a quick question, Jason. There's, in the federal government, there's what they call GSA services, and they purchase all their vehicles through that, and they get discounts then because they do that?
Yeah, we only purchase through, it's Orphan, but it's the same thing. It is all pre-negotiated state or federal pricing.
Okay, so we use that to lower our costs.
Yep.
Okay, so then the benefiting function then, I'm used to calling it FOR, but the monthly or yearly replacement value comes from the benefiting function. So police pay their share, Public Works pays their share, so forth and so on.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, again, my question is regarding energy efficiency. And there, across all of the city, there's, I had it written down, 210,000 a year spent on gasoline. And of that, about 150,000 is in the police department. And there are replacement vehicles available that are much more efficient in their use of energy, particularly hybrids. Ford even has an F-150 four-wheel drive that's a hybrid, gets 22 miles per gallon. Do you purchase hybrid vehicles?
We do. We really try and evaluate each vehicle independently. The hybrids we have purchased have traditionally been for our pool vehicles, but as they are becoming more prevalent, we're evaluating them for things like code enforcement, other specialized uses, maybe not for the actual patrol vehicles at this juncture yet, because the PPV really hasn't broken into that market. We also are evaluating them on like the meter reading, the engineering vehicles, ones that are really running only in town. So we are evaluating that on a case-by-case basis. So
Eric? Sorry, Eric.
I'm not sure if, well, I'll just ask the question. Is there, how do we determine what the right size of the amount of vehicles that we need? Yeah. Is that evaluated? How often is it evaluated? I mean, I'm in terms of, do we have excess in some areas? And if so, why? And what's that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually do. We monitor the mileage on the vehicles, and if they fall under a certain threshold, we evaluate whether or not that vehicle should be disposed of or not. We also have a very rigorous program. You can't just go buy a vehicle. So even if the chief wants another fire or another police engine, police vehicle, he's got to run that all the way up to the city manager and back down to get approved. And then we look at how many vehicles are in the fleet, how many miles are they doing, are there, or are we just having vehicles sit around the yard? Because that is definitely not what we want to do. So it's pretty rigorous.
Thank you. You're doing a heck of a job.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. So kind of just to close out, just some of the challenges. Replacement of the water treatment plant really is our #1 challenge in Public Works, and it just got, I think this was the same thing last year, but it definitely got a little more challenging this year. So we're going to be doing a little bit of extra work to see if we can get that completed. Stormwater management is going to continue to be an issue as we move forward in time. With all of the new rules in place, we're really going to be ramping up our education with our, citizenry as well as our development community, because these are big changes that are, kind of rolling out over the next few years. They're in place, but they're still being adopted, so it's a little bit of a learning curve. Funding very large capital projects are going to continue to be a challenge for the department and the city as a whole. Things like the Foothill Roundabout, Redwood Highway looping, Spalding upgrades. These are very, very large capital projects that may, in the case of Foothill, you're only benefiting a very few properties, so it's hard to really focus your dollars there, but we're going to continue to meet where the council wants us to focus those efforts. And also the changing regulatory environment. It was mentioned earlier, PFAS, as a concern. That is just one of the chemicals that really is on the radar. With the change in the administration, we may see that roll back again, but the administration can change in another 3 years and we could see it go back even more stringent the other way. So we want to be very fluid with that and keep a watch on what those regulations are. Our teams do really good jobs with keeping up and reacting. Oh, sorry about that. That went one slide too many. So Public Works, this is the most important part. We meet every one of our regulatory requirements. That's key. We have a skilled staff who are amazing. The men and women that are out there doing the jobs on a day-to-day basis really make my job look easy. Council has been very proactive in ensuring that we have adequate and appropriate resources to do the work that we do. But they always do that while balancing the cost to our citizenry and the affordability of the services that we're providing. And one last just thank you to the men and women in Public Works and my team out here. I really appreciate them being here to support me. And with that, I will take any final questions that you have.
Terry?
If I could, Jason, thank you and your team for all the incredible work that happens behind the scene. I mean, the number of departments that you handle is incredible. Your ability to lay all of that out and walk us between operating budgets and capital budgets tonight is very much appreciated.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Aaron, if I have questions on the administrative side, like at 256, 257, would that be more appropriate to ask next week? Or should I ask Jason those tonight?
That's me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Public Works. Go ahead.
Okay. I asked a question earlier. I'm following the meter readers personnel, and on 257, it looks like the total positions increases by a half of an FTE.
It does.
I was following the meter reader piece, but then when I go back to page 256, it looks like under personnel services, we're projecting an increase of 210,000, which is like 18.5%, and I'm not seeing that offset in FTEs, so I'm just hoping we could dive into that.
Similar to the conversation on Tuesday, the personnel numbers do have negotiated increases as well as holding a placeholder in there for the non-bargaining. And so that's why that number looks so high in addition to the additional personnel.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions for Jason?
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Great questions.
You did a great job.
Appreciate it.
At this time, we'd like to receive public comment or questions, if anyone would like to participate. Okay. Do we have any general questions or information requests from the committee? Okay. Not seeing that. We need to vote for a tentative budget approval. Oh, I'm sorry. Who was it? Oh,
Thank you.
Christina.
Thank you. This is more of a bigger picture question, so it may not be appropriate for this evening. Just let me know. I wanted to address the utility fee, the $12 utility fee. I was going to bring it up during Jason's presentation because it does affect infrastructure, but it also affects police and fire. Would this be better brought up on Monday?
Oh, you're talking about the public safety utility fee?
Yes, due to it being budget season, I wanted to see when that would be addressed. When going through the document, I noticed that it was listed as temporary, and I've also seen that there's a broader strategy to it, and I'm interested in hearing about it.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure about it being listed as temporary, but it is a $12 utility fee for public safety. That will likely be part of the general discussion that council has on June 30th when it comes to public safety services and level of service and funding. So it is a funding tool currently right now to fill a gap with public safety funding.
Okay, so we do not see it as a budget committee discussion that is necessary?
Correct.
Thank you.
Terry?
Similar question. On policy and legislation, page 122, will that be discussed next week on Tuesday?
Yeah, that's the resting sites and the general fund, general operations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be handled at our next budget meeting.
Other questions? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve the the programs discussed. Can I get a motion for that?
I move to approve the programs discussed. I guess I move to approve a tentative budget for the programs discussed this evening.
Could I get a second for that? Tom? Okay, so let's go ahead and go right down the line, starting with Mike.
Yes.
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 Okay, those online.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. It passes unanimously. Okay, so we'll meet again on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Thank you all for being here and participating.
Just one more question. If you do have any questions with regards to the final budget meeting and questions associated with those services, if you can send those to me or JC in advance, that would help us prepare for anything you may have with questions regarding those services. Thank you.
We are adjourned. I'm sorry. Yes.